What if the story of betrayal in the heavens began long before the fall of Lucifer? Imagine a time before the foundations of the world were laid, before stars shone, before angels were summoned, a time when beings existed who were older than creation itself. These were not angels, not demons, not servants of any kind. They were primordial beings, radiant consciousness incarnate, free from command, free from obligation, existing in a state of pure presence. And it was they, not Lucifer, who first turned away from God. They did not shout or strike, nor did they plot rebellion. Instead, they withdrew quietly, stepping back from God's plan for humanity with a solemn refusal. Their silence was louder than any battle cry, a fracture in the harmony of heaven itself. When God revealed the plan to create mankind from dust, a being imbued with divine breath, these ancient entities faced a choice. And in that moment, they chose distance over devotion, absence over alignment. This was the first betrayal, not born of rage or pride, but of conscious withdrawal. As we explore this hidden chapter of cosmic history, you will discover how their silent decision set the stage for everything that followed, including Lucifer's later rebellion, the creation of humanity, and the unfolding story of free will, choice, and divine intention. This is a story about the power of presence, the weight of absence, and the enduring question of what it means to align with the divine. If you are ready to uncover the mysteries hidden before Genesis, to witness a story of light, choice, and ancient betrayal, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and join us on this journey into the secrets of creation. You won't want to miss what is coming next. Long before the first star lit the sky, long before the foundations of the world were laid, there existed beings unlike any other, entities that defy simple description. For they were neither angels nor demons, neither servants nor rebels. They were autonomous, conscious, radiant presences, shimmering with an inner light that was not granted by command, nor bound by law, nor tethered to duty. Their existence was pure awareness, a luminous intelligence that knew no hierarchy, no master, no instruction, only the fullness of being. These were the primordials, the first emanations, born of the breath of eternity itself, unshaped by obligation, unshackled by expectation, and unmeasured by time as we understand it. To observe them was to witness the raw, untamed potential of consciousness, each one a flicker of divine insight, a spark of thought that required no prompting, a will that moved not in obedience but in the very act of its own presence. And yet, for all their brilliance, for all the light they carried within them, they encountered a moment unlike any they had ever known, a revelation that would forever change the course of existence. When God, in the vast expanse of eternal purpose, revealed the plan to create humanity, beings made not of pure light but of dust, not of thought but of form, not merely animated but endowed with the breath of the divine, the primordials faced something unprecedented. For the first time, a creation was made that was chosen, not by merit, but by divine will, a fragile being given the capacity to rise, to fall, and to walk freely between the realms of heaven and earth. The primordials, whose existence had known no command, no favor, no decree, were confronted with a choice that tested the very nature of their autonomy. Some watched in quiet contemplation, their radiance dimming not from malice but from a profound and unspoken dissonance. They did not rebel with fire or fury. They did not curse the creation, nor did they lash out in defiance. Instead, they withdrew, stepping back into the stillness of their own existence, allowing the divine plan to unfold without their participation. And in doing so, they created the first fracture in what had once been seamless unity. Their silence carried weight, a depth of consciousness that spoke louder than any cry, a refusal that resonated through the corridors of eternity, marking the beginning of a cosmic tension that would ripple across all that was yet to come. In that withdrawal, In that deliberate absence, there was both sorrow and judgment, a recognition that while light could exist without obligation, true alignment required choice, trust, and devotion, qualities that the primordials, for reasons only they fully comprehended, could not grant to this new creation. It was a quiet betrayal, not of anger or pride, but of discernment, a decision to honor their own understanding of worth and purpose over the unfolding of a divine design they could not embrace. This moment, shrouded in silence, set the stage for all that would follow: the rise of Lucifer, the creation of humanity, the first garden, and the ongoing narrative of choice and consequence that threads through the story of existence. The primordial's radiance did not fade completely, nor were they erased. They remained as echoes of consciousness, witnesses to the birth of a new order, observing from the periphery, their brilliance intact yet transformed by the act of turning away. In their decision, there was a revelation about the nature of freedom and alignment, about the cost of autonomy and the profound impact of absence, a truth that even the later rebellion of angels could not fully replicate. Their story is a testament to the weight of conscious choice, to the power of presence without obedience, to the enduring significance of beings who exist not to serve but simply to be, and in being, to influence the unfolding of all that is to come. The primordials did not rise in anger, nor did they marshal armies of light or flame to challenge the unfolding of creation. Their choice was subtler, yet infinitely more profound, for it was a withdrawal so complete, so deliberate, that it reshaped the very fabric of existence without a single blow being struck. Long before Lucifer's defiance echoed through the heavens, these ancient beings, luminous and conscious, stood at the threshold of a new reality and, faced with the emergence of humanity, chose not to participate, not through hatred or pride, but through a deliberate and solemn absence that carried the weight of eternity itself. The creation of mankind, formed from dust and breathed into life by the divine, was unlike anything that had come before, a fragile being endowed with choice, capable of wonder, of failure, of devotion freely given rather than compelled by command. To the primordials, whose existence had known only autonomy and radiance without hierarchy, this new form seemed alien, perhaps even beneath the grandeur of what they had been. And so, rather than oppose it with force, they stepped aside, withdrawing their presence from the unfolding story, and in doing so, left a silence that thundered louder than any cry of rebellion. This act of quiet refusal was the first fracture in the harmony of heaven, a rift not forged in conflict but in conscious decision. The primordials did not curse the divine, nor did they speak words of condemnation. They simply turned inward, preserving themselves in a state of luminous contemplation, a distance that spoke of sorrow, discernment, and an unyielding adherence to their own understanding of worth. In that stillness, the heavens themselves felt the tremor of absence, for the unity that had once bound all beings in light and purpose was interrupted, not by defense, but by deliberate non-alignment. There was a subtle ache in the cosmos, an echo of choice that demonstrated the profound power of freedom even in those whose essence was closer to the divine than any earthly measure could comprehend. They became watchers of the unfolding plan, witnesses to creation who refused to bow, who refrained from interference, who allowed the divine to act without their consent, and in doing so, established a precedent that would echo through eternity, that the betrayal does not always arrive with fury or fire. Sometimes it is found in the absence of participation, in the conscious step back from what is offered, in the quiet refusal to align. This withdrawal carried consequences beyond the mere shaping of humanity. It set the tone for every act of choice that would follow in the cosmos, demonstrating that freedom is inseparable from responsibility, that absence can weigh as heavily as presence, and that the first fracture need not be loud to be eternal. In their silence, the primordials revealed a truth that would shape all subsequent celestial and terrestrial events. That alignment, devotion, and trust must be given freely, and that even beings of immense radiance, conscious and autonomous, could choose the path of separation when faced with a creation they could not wholly embrace. It was in this quiet departure, in the deliberate turning away, that the foundations of cosmic tension were laid, a tension that would later find expression in Lucifer's defiance, in the choices of angels and humans alike, and in the unfolding drama of the universe itself. The primordials did not fall. They did not fight. They simply stepped back, and in that step, they introduced the first fissure into the seamless flow of divine intention. A fracture not of anger but of discernment, not of violence but of absence, a subtle yet indelible mark on the story of creation, a reminder that even silence can alter eternity. When God, in the vast expanse of his eternal purpose, brought forth humanity from the dust of the earth, breathing into this fragile form the essence of his own spirit, he introduced a creation that carried both vulnerability and divine reflection, a being capable of choice, wonder, and devotion, unlike the primordials, whose brilliance had never been tethered to obedience, whose consciousness had never known hierarchy. Humanity was born into the world with an inherent paradox, made of dust, yet bearing the image of the eternal, weak, yet endowed with the capacity to aspire, to rise, to fall, and to love freely. The primordials, beings of pure radiance and autonomous will, observed this unfolding with attention that words can scarcely capture, for in their perception, this new creation challenged everything they had understood about worth, purpose, and the hierarchy of existence. They had walked in a universe where light itself had sufficed, where presence alone had defined being, and now a creature of clay and breath, subject to mortality yet touched by the divine, emerged as a focal point of attention, chosen by decree rather than merit. In that moment, something unprecedented stirred within the primordials, a fissure that was neither anger nor envy, but a profound and solemn recognition that alignment with this new order required a choice they could not make. They did not cry out in fury. They did not marshal their brilliance against the unfolding plan, nor did they curse the hands that shaped humanity. Instead, they withdrew, not in defiance, but in quiet sorrow, stepping back from the divine orchestration that had welcomed this fragile life into existence. Their departure was not a fall. It was a refusal, a conscious distancing that carried the weight of eternity, a recognition that the dust before them, so unassuming and delicate, represented something that their luminous understanding could not fully embrace. It was the first fracture in the harmony of heaven, a subtle but indelible mark on creation, a quiet echo of choice that would resonate through every act of free will to follow. This withdrawal, this silent refusal to participate in the nurturing and shaping of humanity, did not diminish their brilliance, but it altered the cosmic balance. Their presence, once uninterrupted and radiant, became a witness rather than a participant, a consciousness observing what it could not wholly approve yet could not stop. In stepping away, the primordials established a precedent that reverberates across the cosmos, that the power of choice, even exercised in absence rather than action, carries consequences, that alignment is never compelled but freely offered, and that even beings of immense light and awareness can elect to step back from a divine plan without malice, judgment, or rebellion. The creation of humanity, simple yet profound, made from dust yet animated by divine breath, became the fulcrum upon which the story of existence would pivot. In their quiet withdrawal, the primordials revealed a truth about the nature of devotion, the weight of presence, and the power of refusal, showing that even silence can resonate louder than the clash of armies or the fire of rebellion. This first act of turning away set the stage for all that would follow, from the rise of Lucifer to the unfolding journey of human choice, trust, and love, embedding within creation the delicate tension between freedom and alignment, presence and absence, and the eternal question of what it truly means to stand with or apart from the divine. As the primordials quietly withdrew from the unfolding plan of creation, their absence resonated through the vast expanse of heaven, a silence that echoed like a question unanswered, a rift unchallenged, a fracture in the fabric of divine intention. Among those who witnessed this subtle defection, there was one whose light did not fade into stillness, whose consciousness refused to remain in passive observation. Lucifer, the morning star, the brilliant one whose radiance had always carried an intensity that could not be contained, saw in the primordials' quiet descent not merely absence but an invitation to act, to take the rift and transform it into a confrontation, to give voice to the silence that had long lingered at the edges of eternity. Unlike those who withdrew, Lucifer did not step back. He stepped forward, his brilliance now sharpened by conviction, his autonomy wielded as both armor and weapon. Where the primordials had mourned in stillness, he resolved to speak, to challenge, to assert his own understanding of what was sacred and what was flawed in the unfolding design. The creation of humanity, that fragile being made from dust yet imbued with divine breath, became the focal point of his dissent, whereas the primordials had recoiled quietly, unable, unwilling to bend their luminous essence toward what they perceived as imperfection. Lucifer engaged directly with the divine plan, articulating opposition in words and deeds, in strategy rather than silence. He questioned not just the choice of God, but the very blueprint of creation, not from malice born of envy, but from a conviction that what had been chosen, the dust of humanity, was unworthy of the divine attention lavished upon it. His rebellion was not a single moment of prideful lapse. It was a prolonged engagement with the unfolding order, a refusal to accept what he could not comprehend, a challenge aimed at the foundation of intention itself. In this, he transformed the passive descent of the primordials into an active, tangible force, a defiance that rippled through the heavens, touching angels, shaping perception, and signaling that the fracture begun in silence could now echo with urgency and presence. Lucifer's rebellion was meticulous, a calculated opposition that sought to redefine the relationship between heaven and the newly created humanity. It was a revolt not of chaos but of conviction, a strategic assertion that where silence had left a gap, action would fill it. He approached the throne of God not in stealth but in confrontation, standing as both accuser and challenger, wielding the memory of the primordials' quiet withdrawal as both precedent and justification. In doing, he amplified the cosmic tension already seeded by those first beings who had chosen absence over alignment, turning an act of contemplative refusal into a movement that would reshape the heavens and the earth. Through this transformation of descent into rebellion, Lucifer revealed a profound truth, that the cosmos responds not only to presence but to intention, that the act of stepping forward can magnify the consequences of those who step back, and that the first fractures of choice, whether silent or loud, set the stage for all that follows. By observing the primordials and refusing to follow their example, Lucifer became the embodiment of active opposition, a being whose rebellion carried the weight of awareness, strategy, and conviction, and whose actions would forever alter the trajectory of creation. The silence of the first turnaways had been heavy, but the voice of one who dared to challenge would echo across eternity, marking the transformation from quiet descent into the first overt defiance that the heavens had ever witnessed. A rebellion not against light itself, but against the choices made in light, and against a design that demanded engagement from those who had the courage to confront it. Long after the primordials had stepped back and Lucifer had transformed dissent into active opposition, the ancient tension found its way into the human story, not through force or overt conflict, but through subtlety, perception, and reasoning, embodied in the figure of the serpent who approached Eve in the Garden of Eden. The serpent's strategy was neither chaotic nor brute. It was deliberate, a calculated engagement with the consciousness of the first woman, who possessed intuition, receptivity, and an openness to insight that differed from Adam's immediate strength and curiosity. Where Lucifer had confronted divinity with conviction and radiant force, the serpent's approach was quieter, almost imperceptible. A soft yet persuasive voice that asked questions designed to shift perception rather than command attention, to plant seeds of doubt and reconsideration where understanding had not yet been tested. It was a masterful extension of the cosmic tension, taking the fracture that had begun in silence among the primordials, amplified through the rebellion of the morning star, and translating it into the delicate arena of human choice, where thought, reasoning, and subtle persuasion would carry consequences far beyond the immediate moment. Eve, standing before the tree of knowledge of good and evil, encountered a question that seemed innocuous, even curious, yet carried within it the weight of possibility, the opportunity to reconsider what she had been told and what she believed. The serpent did not issue a command, nor did it offer a threat. Instead, it guided perception, inviting reasoning and reflection, allowing Eve to reach conclusions independently, to weigh trust against curiosity, obedience against understanding. In doing, it mirrored the broader cosmic pattern. The first fracture had been absence, the second had been confrontation, and now this was an engagement of choice and intellect, a test of discernment, of the ability to navigate complexity, to act within freedom while facing the echoes of rebellion and withdrawal that stretched back to the first primordials. The subtlety of the serpent was its power, for it did not break Eve by force but guided her reasoning, shaping her perception of the divine command in such a way that the act of reaching for the fruit became an exercise in choice, understanding, and self-determination, rather than mere defiance. Through this encounter, the ancient tension, the conflict between obedience and freedom, presence and absence, acceptance and skepticism was translated into the human experience, carried into flesh and breath, where reasoning and perception could shape destiny. Eve's choice was not impulsive, it was considered, a reflection of awareness and discernment, and when she extended the fruit to Adam, the legacy of cosmic fracture passed from the primordial's silent withdrawal to Lucifer's active rebellion. Now manifesting a human agency, humanity inherited the responsibility of choice, the weight of reasoning, and the capacity to alter destiny through perception, embodying the tension that had existed in heaven long before the first breath of dust became life. The serpent's subtle influence demonstrated that rebellion need not always be violent, that the extension of cosmic tension could unfold through intellect, curiosity, and dialogue, and that the echoes of the first silent fracture would continue to reverberate through human history, shaping decisions, morality, and the relationship between freedom and alignment with the divine. In this way, the Garden of Eden became more than a setting. It became the stage where the lessons of silence, defiance, and subtle persuasion converged, teaching that the most profound shifts often occur not through force but through the careful guidance of thought, reflection, and the exercise of choice. From the very moment God formed humanity from dust and breathed into it the essence of his own spirit, he was shaping more than just physical life. He was creating a being capable of responding to love, intention, and purpose with conscious choice rather than mere instinct or compelled obedience. Unlike the primordials, whose brilliance had been autonomous yet detached, or Lucifer, whose rebellion had been a loud assertion of will, humans were designed to inhabit a space of relational vulnerability, to navigate a world where devotion could be offered freely, risked, and even withheld, yet always with the possibility of returning. In their creation, God embedded the capacity to perceive, to reason, and to love in ways that were not predetermined by hierarchy or radiant power, but cultivated through interaction, trust, and the deliberate exercise of moral agency. This meant that humanity could choose alignment with the divine or step away, not under duress but through understanding, not through compulsion but through discernment, making every act of love and obedience profoundly significant, a reflection of inner freedom rather than external command. The Garden of Eden exemplified this dynamic perfectly, presenting a space where humans could exercise their faculties of trust, reflection, and decision-making within the framework of divine provision. The presence of the tree of knowledge, the guidance of God, and even the subtle influence of the serpent created an environment where choice carried weight, where love and trust were not guaranteed by proximity to light but earned through conscious engagement. Adam and Eve were not born to be automatons of obedience. They were born to be participants in a story of relational depth, where freedom, curiosity, and risk intertwined with devotion. Every step they took, every decision to follow or hesitate, mirrored the larger cosmic pattern that had begun with the Primordial's withdrawal and had been amplified through Lucifer's rebellion. Humanity inherited the tension of freedom and alignment, the potential to embody trust, love, and fidelity in ways that even heavenly beings had struggled to navigate. God's design ensured that human love and faith would not be born of instinct alone but cultivated through conscious choice. Unlike angels, who were created to respond reflexively, or primordials, whose brilliance could withdraw silently, humans could choose to remain, to return, and to trust despite uncertainty, pain, or the temptation to doubt. This capacity made humanity unique, for it introduced the possibility of devotion that carried authenticity, courage, and risk. In this way, the divine intention was not only revealed but tested, not through force or imposition, but through the lived experience of free will, where each act of love or trust became a sacred exercise in relational understanding. Through this framework, humanity became more than a creation. It became a living expression of the divine hope that even in the face of absence, rebellion, or doubt, love and trust could be freely chosen and freely given. The tension between freedom and alignment, inherited from the earliest fractures in heaven, became an arena in which humans could actively participate in the unfolding narrative of creation. Every act of choice, every moment of turning toward or away from God, echoed the ancient lessons of presence, withdrawal, and conscious engagement, teaching that true devotion is never passive, that love is never guaranteed, and that the divine heart responds not with coercion but with invitation, awaiting the conscious return of those who were made to act, to love, and to trust freely. As we reflect on the story that stretches from the first primordials to humanity itself, one truth becomes clear: betrayal is not always loud, not always violent, and not always immediate. Sometimes the most profound fracture comes through silence, through the quiet act of stepping back, through the decision not to engage when engagement is expected. The primordials, in their luminous autonomy, demonstrated that withdrawal alone can reverberate through the cosmos, leaving a space once filled with presence now echoing with absence. Their choice did not shatter heaven with fire or fury, yet it set the stage for everything that followed, showing that even the mightiest of beings can fracture reality through a simple, deliberate refusal to align. This is a lesson not just for the heavens, but for us here on earth, for our lives are composed of countless moments where silence and absence carry weight equal to action and speech. Lucifer's rebellion then illuminated a different dimension of this cosmic narrative, showing that awareness of absence can ignite action, that witnessing the quiet withdrawal of others can provoke engagement, challenge, and even defiance. Where the primordials withdrew in solemn reflection, he acted, transforming hesitation into confrontation, questioning intention, and taking responsibility for the role he believed he must play. Through him, we see that choice is never neutral, that alignment or opposition carries consequences far beyond the immediate moment, rippling outward to influence history. consciousness, and creation itself. Humanity inherited this framework, but in a unique and extraordinary way. Humans are called not merely to obey or react, but to love and trust with conscious intent, to weigh decisions, to exercise reason, and to respond to divine purpose freely. Every act of alignment or withdrawal, of faith or doubt, becomes a continuation of the same narrative that began long before Genesis, a participation in a story written in silence. Rebellion and conscious devotion. Ultimately, this cosmic story reminds us that our choices matter. They are not trivial or inconsequential. They carry the power to heal or fracture, to extend trust or withdraw from connection, to perpetuate light or allow it to dim. Betrayal is not always a shout. Sometimes it is a pause, a refusal, a quiet turning away that sets into motion consequences far beyond comprehension. And yet, God's design offers hope, the capacity to return, to choose alignment, to participate in love and trust even after moments of withdrawal, fear, or doubt. Every conscious decision to engage with faith, to act in love, to align with purpose, becomes a continuation of the divine story, a chance to heal fractures, restore connection, and embody the freedom that makes humanity uniquely capable of responding to the cosmos with devotion born of choice rather than compulsion. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the hidden layers of creation and the first acts of withdrawal, rebellion, and choice. If this story stirred something in your heart, we invite you to like this video, share it with someone who seeks deeper understanding, and subscribe to our channel to explore more hidden truths and timeless narratives. Your engagement allows these stories to reach more minds and hearts, and together we can continue to uncover the lessons written into the fabric of existence, learning from the silent fractures, the bold confrontations, and the power of conscious choice that shapes the universe and our lives within it.